Welcome to today's session on Strategy Playbook for Exceptional Results. I will now turn things over to Scott. Thank you, Scott.
Before Scott talks, my name is Dr. Steve Verone, and Scott was in my Capstone course, and he's presented a marvelous strategy playbook on CDG, and I believe that it was a pleasure to read. And a little bit about the MBA Capstone course. It explores the role that strategy plays in helping organizations reach success. A good strategy helps guide an organization, providing it with a clear picture to achieve its goals. So over the course of the 8-week course, the Capstone course, Scott, he built a strategy playbook for his organization. And through this playbook, he began understanding the organization, its focus on its culture, social and economic climate, and then its purpose. And then he examined the opportunities and readiness for the organization, focusing on its health and the need and readiness for change. Lastly, the focus was on the development of a strategy and the validation of that strategy, and finally, the implementation of that strategy. We look at the strategy playbook as a form of due diligence analysis, where one is stepping into the role of either a consultant or a senior leadership position, where they are preparing a forward-looking, crisp, and impactful analysis about where that company might be going over the next 5 years. Scott excelled in the program, excellent student, and I think you all will enjoy this presentation. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Verone. I appreciate that. So this is a fun morning for me. I'm excited to be able to say that I'm presenting for the first time as a Walden alumni. I finished my MBA program at the end of the summer, this past summer. However, I'm looking forward to starting on my DBA work here in the fall if everything lines up. Before I get into too much of this, I would like to extend a big thank you to all the Walden staff that have helped along the way. They've provided challenging coursework as well as mentorship opportunities that I've really enjoyed. Specifically though, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Steve Verone. I was able to have him with 2 different classes, and I felt the practical application that he took for some of these complex topics that might seem kind of abstract allowed me and others to look and see how we could apply those to things that we were facing in our professional and our personal life, etc. And the work that I'm presenting today is one example of that type of application. As a matter of background, I'm not a traditional MBA student. My life started in the world of engineering. I have a bachelor's and master's degree from Georgia Tech in Atlanta. My career has been up until about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago in that traditional engineering world in which everything is black and white, everything is a spreadsheet if you can do it that way, and it's based on getting a certain thing done. The business world is very different from that. Just last week, I was interviewing a young candidate, and I mentioned that I just finished my MBA, and she very poignantly said, "Why would an engineer get an MBA?" And I thought that was a great question, and also a good way to kick off the discussion today. As we grow, our careers change. What we're doing change. We may have gone to school for something different. We may have become a nurse. We may have become an engineer, whatever that is. But there's a need for new topics, new things that you need to know how to do. And in my world, I've been lucky enough to progress in leadership. And business skills are what I needed for that. And that is exactly what Walden provided. That was a structured program to do that. This course specifically lent itself very well to what I was doing. My current role is that of Chief Strategy Officer. I've been with my company for 12 years. My job is essentially to get everybody on the same bus, looking at the same vision down the line, but then to figure out all the steps we're going to take to get there. It's a tremendous job. I look forward to coming to work every day. And I mean that from top to bottom. It's a great place to be. I've just finished a week of actually going out and sharing the company vision and strategies with our 8 offices. And I've seen the momentum behind that and what we can get done in the future. Walden in my coursework presented a lot of different topics for me though. From those though, I kept looking over everything and seeing what applies most to my organization, the investment that my organization has made in me and in this coursework, and where can I make a big change in this? Next slide, please. So when you look at the capstone, you realize you're going to spend a couple of weeks digging into this. And I remember sitting up thinking, well, there's probably an easy way to do this to get me out of these couple of weeks so Dr. Verone doesn't bug me to get my stuff done. But instead of that, I thought I could do something that touched home. So let's look at my own company. I'm a stockholder in that. I'm a member of the executive team. So I thought it may not be easy, but we'll start there. So CDG Inc. is my company. We function as a holding company. We have a bunch of different industries, but I'm going to focus on one specific in that. We've been in business for 76 years in the professional services industry. That's mainly engineering, legal, and things like that. What that means is we sell time. Our product is expertise. We don't sell a widget. We don't manufacture something. We sell our time. The industry in general, if you're not familiar with it, is very slow to change. We still present black and white plans on pieces of paper, send them out, and someone gets things built. I think that's going to change quickly based on a number of things. That part of that has been external things that have happened, internal and external. I think COVID heightened all of that stuff. I think all the innovations started to finally hit this industry and push it forward. Also, as I mentioned, traditionally the professional service industry leadership is people like me. It's engineers who have just moved up. I hope they can all be so lucky as to go back and get an education in this. We're 76 years old and we're on our third generation of ownership. However, a key to our success is we have a strong transition plan. That's leadership, ownership, etc. in there. The work that we do is in the civil and environmental engineering field for the most part. That includes environmental remediation, pollution prevention, making the environment a safer place, including things also like industrial expansion, municipal structures, building bridges, building highways, those sorts of things. The teams that work on these, it's about 175 people right now. They're varied. We have brand new engineering graduates who've just come out of school, as well as some seasoned professionals. To get the most out of this company, they have to work together very effectively. And that can be a challenge based on personalities and based on a lot of other things. The company's been successful. That's a great thing, but it's also a blind spot. We're in a sustained period of 12% annual net revenue growth, which is a big one for us. And they're industry standards for us. We produce about $170,000 of net revenue per full-time equivalent employee. It's a good metric for us. 135 to 140 is the industry average. And because of that, we've retained a place on the E&R 500, top 500 list for the past 3 years. So success, it seems like a great thing, but we want to sit back and relax on that. And I'm not one to throw quotes and things, but there's a quote that I use anytime I'm talking about success, and I've got to pull it out. And that's a John Steinbeck quote that is, "We now face the danger which in the past has been the most destructive to humans: success, plenty, comfort, and ever increasing leisure. No dynamic people has ever survived these dangers." It's comfortable to be successful. Why should we change? But because of this, the perceived company's resistance to change has obviously increased. We'll get to that in a minute though. So what's driven this success? If you look at it, it's one thing. It's an increasing focus on people. We used to be numbers focused, but now we're looking at people. What can we do? And we've made specific actions to that, include, there's a number of them, to become more employee centric and looking at their experience. From these, our employee engagement based on a Gallup survey has gone from the 6th percentile, the day we got that was a bad day, to the 70th percentile. We're moving up. As that's happened, our financial metrics have improved though, which is a great way to sell that story. Our debt to equity went from over 4 to 0.96 underneath that one limit. We have an internal limit of 2.4. Because of that, we're able to pay out higher incentives. And with that comes employee engagement. So we have a well-defined guiding culture for the company. Our mission is one that's very important to me. We exist to help people build their future. For our team members, that might be building a career, building a family. For an owner, that might be building a facility. For a civic leader, that could be doing something to improve their community, to make it better for all the people that live there. Similarly, our purpose is to help leaders to make a difference, or in our terms, to put their fingerprints on the pages of progress. Internally, this is for our team members to work on meaningful projects. This is projects they can see, they can feel, and they can say, I did that. It's their fingerprint. Externally, this is to help those people make the world a better place. That might be environmental cleanup. It might be something similar to that. But in all of these, again, you're going to see this common strand, and that is that the focus is on the individual. Our strong values are based on a desire for growth, individual growth, and team accountability. Advocacy is a big part of what we do. That's an ownership of someone's problem. A client calls us because something is facing them as a challenge, and we try to instill in all of our staff that you need to own that problem. Let that be your problem. We had a significant problem on Christmas Eve a number of years ago when I was new here, and I remember we had 30 people out on the site dealing with a major environmental catastrophe because we own that problem. That wasn't the client's problem. That was our problem. So in branding, we try to push all of these things forward so that everybody knows that they see it, they know what's out there. We also use these values as part of our decision-making progress. We always go back and say, well, does this decision meet our values? Does this acquisition meet our values? And it provides a good litmus test for a lot of what we do. So the coursework here at Walden has heightened the importance of a topic that was unfortunately a little bit unknown to even me, and that was the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. These were lacking in my organization. This is not just simply some cultural thing. It's a lack of culture, experience, geography, and others. In investigating other firms, I identified a similarity in that problem at my organization gets worse as you go up the organizational chart. So does it matter? Well, of course it matters. This challenge is one that I feel that is holding us back. It's stopping our growth. It's stopping what the organization can do. But the better side of that is once it's mitigated, it's an area where the company can make a difference. And based on what I've learned, it's also an area where I can help to make a difference. Next slide, please. So the organizational structure and what we're facing right now yields a number of opportunities that we could leverage to do better, to make a more impactful organization. Some of these were identified and analyzed through a SWOT analysis and other tools. And I've kind of grouped these into 5 general categories, but there's a lot of overlap between these. The first, because it's important to our values, is growth. The opportunities for growth span every nook and cranny of the company. These are also facilitated by our organizational structure. We have a matrix organization in which services are one side of it, the markets we're working for, and where the people are located are another side. What that means is we can easily add new services, new offices, new people, new service lines, everything very easily. It doesn't take going back and reinventing the wheel each time that we have to do this. It's set up for that. So we're already set that way. We have basically communicated to everybody that we are growing, and everybody seems to, in general, be pulling in that direction. I see this as something where we can push past the 12% growth into something new. We can expand beyond the Southeast region. This requires a whole lot of support from a lot of people, and getting them on board is key to all of this. Innovation is another one. This is, again, one of our primary values. We have to push this in teams and understand how we promote innovation. We're in an industry that is slow to innovate, but that's an opportunity. If we're in a highly innovative field, it might be more difficult. We might be that bleeding edge, but we're more cutting edge on this. So we're trying to look for what does that look like? And it's not just make up a new service offering. It's not just that. It's also we can innovate in terms of thought leadership, how we deliver our products, which is a project, or even how our teams interact with one another. The next thing is we identified a need for differentiation. We're selling time. Company A and Company B are going to tell you they're better than the other one, but we need a way to show this. Again, just like innovation, thought leadership is a way that we can do this. We want to separate ourselves not only for our clients, but also for the people who work here. When someone's making a hiring decision, we want to be that preferred employer. We want to be that place that they want to go. That's going to help us hire and retain the best. And that fuels the rest of this. If I have those people, I can grow, I can innovate. So it's a big part there. looking back at that human element, which is critical in all of this, we have to look at each phase of that talent management structure. I said it in a presentation earlier that's looking at this exact thing about how you manage your talent and bring it up. And I think this is so important in all that we do. Acquisition. From a diversity standpoint, we have to look at where are we looking for these people? How are we looking for them? Who are we looking for? What does our ideal candidate, what identifies that person? What skills do they have? And we need to stretch that and challenge ourselves on that. Also, how are we developing those people? Is our mentorship program good enough? Do we need more training? Do we need to put them through more experiences? What is the best fit for those people? And finally, how do we retain them? Today's market is an incredible challenge for employee retention. Everyone's fighting to get them. So my competitors are knocking at the door every day, wanting to take my best people. And it's more than money. It's absolutely more than just compensation. Employees want a challenge. They want those incentives, but more than anything, they want an opportunity to make a difference. And we are challenged every day to figure out what does that look like, but it's an opportunity. Finally, there's a big opportunity for organizational alignment. It'll never be easier. We're growing every day. As we get bigger, alignment gets trickier and trickier. So we have to start now with figuring out how we want to get aligned. What we developed is deliberately discussing our purpose, vision, goals, and every strategy is a start. Also, making sure that our messaging and our culture is all aligned and going the same direction. However, from my coursework, I've also learned that we have to model what we want. If our leadership group is not on the same page, how can we expect everyone throughout the organization to be on the same page? So we have to have a unified front as we go forward for this. So accounting for all of these opportunities and considering the potential benefits creates a need for a comprehensive strategy that can leverage all of these opportunities to improve the organization and the fingerprint that the organization leaves. Next slide, please. So now we get to the strategy. What are we going to do about all of this? How are we going to leverage these opportunities? This theme at Walden for the importance of diversity is one that touches both my organizational challenges as well as these opportunities, I believe. So the strategy that's been put forward and which we're working to implement right now is one to develop and implement an organizational level diversity program. This has a lot of legs to it, and it doesn't just start with we're going to have a diversity program. It starts with an understanding of the importance of diversity. When we recap some of this, you see that's been a big challenge. Encouraging diversity at all levels and leveraging the rich ideas that are produced by these diverse teams. Also, we have to celebrate diversity in all of its different forms and all the unique contributions that the diverse workforce brings both to the company and to the products that we produce, our time. The prior organizational knowledge here is very limited. It actually, I found, holds a negative connotation that's based on misinformation. Even my own human resources department has had some of this misinformation floating around about what diversity might mean to the company and to how we operate. And maybe it's limiting us if we start putting this forward. So that's been a big challenge to deal with. As we look to implement, we start with the team. Who's going to be involved in this? How are we going to do it? This has been kind of an evolving thing. So the team that we've developed is a diverse internal and external team. Employees throughout the organizational chart at all levels. This is not something that is top down. It's every level. We have to have all of those people. It also involves a number of clients, community leaders, and other industry leaders. For the purpose of this research, I reached out to these people. It was on a smaller scale, but going forward, we've continued that to get more perspectives on what we need to do to go forward. Also, the stakeholder analysis tool that was introduced as part of the Capstone project was one thing that was used. And I thought I had a pretty good comprehension of my stakeholders, but really that helped me to identify even more. From this, we were able to get new perspectives and insight and also advocacy. We were able to get what I call buy-in for what we were doing. People are more likely to follow something if they were involved in the development of it. And as we've gone forward, I found that these people are helpful in the heavy lifting that's associated with actually implementing the strategy on this. So as we move on and we look at the challenges that are coming, I I found the inability to want to change foundational elements. This seems like changing who we are. And to a degree it is. It's a betterment though. So we've had to look for effective change management. That's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of challenge though, of course. So how have we managed the change? The first thing is communication. The second thing is communication. And the third thing is communication. Then there's some more after that. That's effective and consistent communication. This has included education and basically opposing those things that people didn't understand. There was an immediate push to, we don't like this, we don't understand it. So we start the educational process and we explain those things. We've also worked to build trust among our team members. Open dialogues have helped a lot with that. Sharing of information openly. It's helped not only in this strategy, but also in other corporate functions. Clear messaging and control of that message has been important as well, so that the right information gets out there. We've looked for participation, getting a lot of people involved with it. The more people who are supporting that, as well as consistent reporting to kind of show how all of this aligns with what we've been doing. So as we do this and we're developing the strategy, we look at a number of validation tools that were brought forward during the Capstone project. These were tremendously helpful, and I've used them for this as well as for some other things. The strategy map was the first one that was used, and this shows how the employee focus filters upward through the internal customer and financial objectives of the corporation. And it shows, again, the focus on people is important. The pest analysis shows that changing social conditions impact us. As engineers, we didn't think that was really a case, but everything's changing. Work-life balance, a need for flexibility, remote work, and more so, we have to provide the infrastructure and the guidance to support remote teams so they can collaborate even when they're on different continents. Again, you see this strand of there's a human focus here. A third analysis tool was Porter's 5 forces. This showed 2 primary things. The first was again, this need to attract and retain talent. And the second was a need for differentiation in services. So we've gone through this, we've analyzed the strategy, we know that we need it, and that's not it. There's no value if we don't implement the strategy. So that is currently where this strategy sits with my corporation. The first step to this, however, was the plan. We outlined the steps we were going to take, as well as contingency plans for when things didn't go as planned, and look at those evolving stakeholders. As we progress, things change. And we also set the success metrics in the planning stage. We then set the budgets. We're a very financially driven organization. This was critical. It set an expectation on the time and resources that were needed to implement this. Without that, I think failure could have happened very early on. The next one, and a challenge we have on a daily basis, is focus. People have a lot of things going on, and this may not be front of mind every day, but we've got to keep it there and not let other things creep in and take that mind space and change everything else. But at the same time, leading this initiative, I have to be respectful of the time that people are investing in this. Advocacy was another big part. We had to identify those advocates and create advocates where we didn't have them. These are the people inside and outside the organization who believe this strategy and who can serve as the front line to making sure this is a success and to make sure that the same story is being told. I call these the champions of the strategy. It's the last one in the list, but it's probably the most important thing, and that is the communication plan. This came through other coursework, and I figured out that this is necessary in everything we do. This weaves its way through all of it. We've got to set expectations, norms, preferences, and make sure that it's easy to communicate. Remove that barrier so that everybody will communicate. Finally, success metrics. If we don't define success, how are we going to know when we get there? Success in this looks at talent, which is attracting and developing talent. From this, we're looking to see a heightened competition for positions, increasing internal promotions, and lower regrettable turnover, for instance. Innovation may be hard to measure, but it can be manifested through new ideas coming forward, including what we do and how we do it. Collaboration. This would look like larger, more diverse teams. This can be teams that have people across geography and other barriers working together effectively. Differentiation. This is seen both as an employer and as a service provider. Diversity would lead us to a whole lot of different ways that we can show that we're different. Return on investment. Finally, the financial metric, here we go. We want to be able to show people that what we did actually is showing some more profit. It's lower recruiting costs, better project performance, more profitable market segments, and increasing our competitive market share. So maintaining success as we go forward with this implementation requires reporting on all of these things, both to show the success, but just as much to be very honest and open with the challenges and the derailment that we've experienced. So in that light, as we've started this implementation over the last several weeks or months, I have learned a whole lot about it. The first is the responses have been varied. Not everybody has accepted this the same way, and not even the way that I thought they would. These long-held misconceptions, a lot of these surround the idea of quotas. Oh, are you looking to set quotas? No, not at all. That's a common misconception that I'm seeing here. That's a challenge, so communicating that has been important. Things are moving slower than I want. That's kind of part of my personality trait, in that I always think things will go faster, and this has gone even slower than I would have expected. But we're going in the right direction. That's what's important. I'm really learning a lot about the company and about myself through the shared interaction with various stakeholders. And as we work through that, I'm seeing a heightened need for allies, and seeing how having one ally who has 4 other people that follow them immediately increases the number of people who are for something. There's not a single day that has gone by that I've not seen a new perspective that I thought was interesting on how we're going to do this, or what it's going to look like, or what success might be. Finally, the last takeaway I've had so far of this is that you've got to remain flexible. If you don't maintain that flexibility, you're going to derail. You're going to get too flustered with what's going on. So you got to keep that going. Next slide, please. So in working on the capstone, we went through a number of resources, great things related to the professional services industries, to diversity and everything else that's surrounding that. So these are just some of those primary resources that I thought were pretty accessible and covered a whole lot of the important things about that. Next slide, please. So to close this today, looking at your own organization, I found is a challenge. For me, a lot of the things that I thought we needed to change are things that I had my hand in developing. So saying, hey, we need to change that was tricky. However, envisioning this changed future state has been incredibly energizing. It gives new purpose and has helped me to live out our mission to the next level. There are a lot of tools out there to help with this perspective, and these are best when you involve a large group of people to get theirs. Whether you like that perspective or not, it's valid, and you need to take it and address it and mitigate it if it's a challenge. The skills that are used in evaluating and formulating these plans go beyond our professional settings. And so much of the coursework, I interacted with some great classmates, co-workers, that could take these topics and apply them to a social situation or to something else they're doing. I'm on the board of the local Humane Society, and I've been able to apply throughout each course something that I learned for that. And I think that that's important, that we know that this is not just something we do at work and we leave at the end of the day. It's important. This strategy of diversity is one that I am confident will improve the future success of my organization, because it addresses people. And we've seen in the past that addressing people helps promote success. As this strategy is implemented, I see that we will create an organization that defends its position as an industry leader. It's respected by others, even our competitors. It's a place where people want to work, and it's identified as a thought leader. The strategy involves the engagement of a very diverse stakeholder group. That being said, I sure would like to open this presentation up and close today with any input from you guys on this. So I thank you for your time today. And with that, I'm done with my portion, I think.
Thank you, Scott. We really appreciate you sharing your presentation with us today. It looks like we do have time for a few questions. Please feel free to post any questions or comments for our speaker in the chat area. One from Steve. Terrific. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
While others may be typing, what is one bit of advice, Scott, that you would give to Walden students who are approaching this stage of their program?
So I think the biggest thing to me was to pull out your existing coursework. Remember those things that you went through before. Don't just focus on what's in front of you. I went through a number of financial classes that were helpful in putting this together, marketing classes that added to this. So take more of a holistic view when you're putting together this capstone. I think that increases the circle of influence that you can have when developing this. And also don't cut yourself short on time. This is not just an exercise to get an assignment done. This is something that can have some real potential for you. So
Great, thank you. Can you tell us something that you learned throughout this process that surprised you?
sure. I think that in the implementation portion of this, I have found that my thought was that I was going to have the most resistance from certain groups, and I didn't. It was the people who just were newer to the company who maybe lacked trust in what we were doing as a corporate entity. So not only selling the idea of diversity and this strategy, I had to sell the idea of our executive team looks out for the employee. We're looking for that next horizon. We have a 2036 vision, for instance, that is guiding us, 14 years in the future now? And seeing that and knowing that it's not just one idea that you're selling, it's a complete idea.
Great.
I'm reading through the questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, as well. I see the question of how are you going to address the pushbacks you're experiencing, especially top management? That is a fabulous question, and that's something that has been a challenge. What I have found is there is power in numbers, and having somebody who's at the top who may be closer to retirement, they are willing to listen to a number of people when you have the entire next generation who is all on the same sheet of music, all going in the same direction, and they want that. We can also use, I've been using data to support this. Some of the resources that I received in this coursework have helped in that to show. There's a great HBR article, I think it's referenced here, about innovation and diversity being directly tied to one another. I've used that. But more than anything, I'm using gaining additional momentum from other people to combat that idea. And I don't take the pushback as a negative. It's an opportunity to do more research, to be more well-rooted in what I think is important. And at times they've pushed back on some ideas that maybe I was a step too far ahead or off in the wrong direction. So I've been able to make a course correction myself, but I'm always looking for a new strategy on how to address those people specifically, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who could actually stop this. Yeah, the data-driven part is big. I've also found coworkers who, the advocates that I described, who have asked me about additional resources. And you wouldn't know how many times I've pulled up my syllabus, pulled up a citation and sent it out, and it's easy. And they sure think I'm prepared when I can pull those out so immediately.
That's great. Thanks, Scott.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments at this time? All right. Once again, Scott, we appreciate you sharing your experiences and your project with us today.